I was stirring grits when the doorbell started its impatient song. 7:18 a.m. The kitchen clock, tisk-tisking like a church mother. Marcus never announced himself unless he wanted something. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door to my son's cologne and a red leather folder tucked under his arm like a sermon he'd decided I needed to hear. "Morning, Ma," he said, not kissing my cheek, just shouldering past me to the table I've paid off plate by plate. "Coffee?" I asked out of habit. "Black." He sat, thumb tap-tapping his phone while I poured. Same hands as his father, same knuckles that tightened when the room didn't obey. He slid the red folder between my placemat and my quiet. "Sign where it's yellow. Tiana made mistakes. We fix it by Friday, 5 p.m., or the wrong kind of people gonna start asking the right kind of questions." I opened it. Notices. A transfer form with my name marching across it. A bank slip stamped heavy as a gavel. $85,000. Cash. My stomach did that old widow's drop, the one that comes when you realize love has teeth. Subscribe to our channel. This helps our work reach more people. "Marcus," I said, keeping my voice low, the way you talk to a skittish dog. "This is my retirement, my meds, my roof. Why is my name on a cash withdrawal?" He sipped my coffee like it belonged to him. "Because you don't use it. You hoard it. Meanwhile, family drowning. Don't be sentimental, Ma. Just sign, transfer $285K, and I'll handle it. Tiana's got a plan." I used to be the treasurer at First New Mount. I know decimals and dates. I know the smell of cooked numbers. "Who approved this?" I asked, tapping the slip. He leaned in, smile thin as a razor. "You did, last week." I pressed 2 fingers to the paper like I could read its pulse. The stamp said N05, and I remembered N05. I was at Sister Pearl's, checking hymns. "I did not," I said. He set the cup down hard enough to chip the saucer. "Don't disappoint me, Ma." The old line, the leash disguised as love. In the window, my crepe myrtle shook in the November wind. I thought of 2004, grave dirt on my shoes, Marcus promising, "I'll take care of you, Ma." His hand warm while mine shook. I thought of every receipt I ever tucked into a jar because paper remembers when people don't. "I need to think," I said. He checked his watch, the expensive one Tiana posted with the caption grind, "Never sleeps." "You got till Friday, 5 p.m. He stood, straightened his coat, and left the red folder blooming on my table like a warning flare. When the door clicked shut, the house inhaled. I thumbed the bank slip again. The stamp was crooked, and beneath "Approved by" a name was typed. I whispered it out loud, and my breath went cold. Marcus E. Brooks. Why was my son's name sitting on my withdrawal like a signature I never gave? Denise answered on the second ring. "Say it plain, Laverne." "My boy just brought me a debt-wearing lipstick," I said. "Red folder, Friday by 5. She exhaled like a match going out. "I'll be there in 20. Don't touch a thing." By the time she arrived, gray scarf, courthouse eyes, I'd laid everything out on my table like communion. The slip, the form, the notices. "Look here," I said, pointing. "The bank stamp reads Nov 5. I was leading hymn practice." Denise adjusted her glasses. "Stamp's real. This field ain't. Approved by Marcus E. Brooks. Banks don't print your son's name there unless he pushed it through," I finished. She opened the folder's inner sleeve and stilled. "Lord." She slid out a 2-page power of attorney dated last spring. My name scrawled brave and tidy. My stomach pulled tight. "Denise, I never signed that." She tilted the page. "It's your style, but the slant is off. Your L hooks high. This one dips. We'll get a handwriting examiner." I pressed my palm to the wood. "He said if I don't transfer $285K, they'll come knocking." "Let 'em knock," she said. "Meanwhile, we call your branch manager, freeze movement, and draft a revocation of any POA. Also, Laverne, start recording. Voicemails, texts, everything." The doorbell rang again, sharp as a slap. Marcus didn't wait to be invited. Tiana hovered behind him, sunglasses inside like shame had a shade. He set another sheet on my table with a flourish. "Good news. We updated the POA so you don't have to stress the bank. Just sign here and nap. I looked at my son's face, the one I'd kissed when fever took him at 8, the one I'd prayed over when he drove too fast at 17. No, I said. Silence stretched. Tiana's tongue clicked against her teeth. Marcus smiled slow. You slipping, Ma. You forget your pills? Tiana booked a eval. Doctor can sign you as… What's the word, baby? Impaired, Tiana said, manicure catching the light. My chest burned. You can't. We can, he said softly, by Friday. 5. Denise stepped from the hallway like an amen. And I can call the bank, the police, and the pastor. You might want to sit down, Marcus. His eyes flicked. Who is this? Someone who reads, dates, and amounts, she said. And who knows your middle initials shouldn't be on your mama's approval line. He chuckled, but his jaw jumped. We're done here. He scooped the folder, then left the original slip by accident. The door shut. My phone buzzed a minute later. Voicemail. I pressed play. Marcus's voice, low and tight. Don't disappoint me, Ma. Family comes first. I saved it, labeled 9/11, 7:56 p.m. Denise squeezed my shoulder. You keeping receipts? At my age, I said. I don't shout, I document. She opened her tote. Tomorrow, bank manager at 9:30, then Pastor Reed at noon. Your reputation shields you. We'll get CCTV if we can. And Laverne, do not be alone with them. Night fell hard. I made tea that cooled untouched. Beside my bed, the red folder glowed like a brake light you can't outrun. I set an alarm for 7 a.m. and placed my Bible on top of it, the way my mother taught me when storms came. At 2:13 a.m., a new text lit the dark. From Tiana. Don't worry, it's already done. Attached, a draft listing for my address, valued at $420,000. Was my house already walking out the door with my name still inside it? Friday, 5 p.m. Glowed in my head like a neon sign I couldn't switch off. By morning, I'd stacked proof the way I fold towels, square, neat, unforgiving. I pulled the biscuit tin from the top pantry shelf, my private archive. Receipts rubber-banded by year. 2011, $3,200 for Marcus's truck. 2016, $9,150 emergency vendor. 2019, $22,000 bridge money. Paper remembers when people don't. The tin smelled like old cinnamon in church basements. I opened my 2004 envelope. Funeral week. The paper softened by grief. The program with Edward's photo. The sticky note where Marcus had scrawled, I'll take care of you, Ma. Promise, M. The promise lives next door to the lie. You only notice the fence when you're bleeding. At 9:27 a.m., Denise and I walked into Peachtree Federal Edgewood branch. The manager, Mr. Keyes, buzz cut, tie with tiny pineapples, recognized me from years of deposit slips and Wednesday smiles. Ms. Brooks, you've always been precise, he said, glancing at the red folder like it might bite. Let's pull up activity. He tapped the keys. The screen reflected in his glasses. There was a cash withdrawal of $85,000 on Novi 5 at 4:42 p.m. He scrolled, frowned. Unusual. Cash that large requires additional approvals and, protocol. He flicked to the approval pane. It says, approved by Marcus E. Brooks. That's not normal. Approval should be an officer's ID, not a personal name. Was I present? I asked. He shook his head. File notes say, customer known to approver. He cleared his throat. I shouldn't say this, but the teller's remark reads, son present, mother in car. He looked up at me. Were you in a car that day? Nov 5, 442, I said. I was at First New Mount printing hymn numbers. I have the copy log, 4:16, 4:58 p.m. Denise slid her legal pad between us. We'll need a CCTV pull and teller logs. Also, place a temporary alert on Ms. Brooks's accounts. And we're filing a POA revocation today at 11:30 a.m. I've drafted it. Mr. Keyes nodded. I'll request CCTV from the vault corridor and lobby cams. We keep 30 days. You're within window. He typed a note. And I'm flagging this activity to our risk unit. The approval field bothers me. On the way out, I heard my name. Ms. Laverne? It was Jameer, the young security guard who says, "Ma'am," like an apology. He lowered his voice. "I can't talk on the floor, but that day, I remember a man arguing about respecting family. Hood pulled up, sunglasses inside. He hesitated. If somebody calls me official-like, I'll say what I saw." Back in the car, November sunlight slashed through the windshield, carving my doubt into pieces. "We go to the church next," I said. "Pastor Reed knows my pen. He knows my Sunday school sheets. He'll vouch where I was." Denise buckled in, eyes cutting sideways. "Laverne, I'm not saying pastor's involved. I'm saying power protects power. We keep him informed, carefully, but we keep proof in our pocket. Proof in the pocket." I thought of Marcus's voicemail, saved and labeled, NOV 11, 7:56 p.m. I hit play again, the words hissing from my speaker like steam. "Don't disappoint me, Ma. Family comes first. Family." The word that buys guilt wholesale and sells it back retail. At church, the copy room still smelled like warm paper. I pulled the job log. User, L. Brooks, 4:16, 4:58 p.m. Pages 36. Sister Pearl signed the choir schedule, 4:35 p.m. Ballpoint, digging into the paper like she meant it. I tucked it into a manila envelope with the biscuit tin receipts. In Pastor Reed's office, sunlight poured through stained glass, painting us good whether we were or not. He listened, steepling his fingers, nodding at the right places. "We'll keep this in the family," he said finally, voice smooth as an usher's glove. No need for a scene on Sunday. But hadn't a scene already begun? When we stood to leave, a framed certificate caught my eye. Community Outreach Grant, Peachtree Federal. Issued Nov 6, the day after my money walked. My throat tightened as I read the signature line under the bank seal. Why did Marcus's name appear again? Now on a grant certificate hanging in my pastor's office. "Friday, 5 o'clock, Denise reminded me, tapping her watch like a metronome. "Clock is your enemy and your leverage." We set up in my dining room, the battlefield. Red folder open, manila envelope beside it, my Bible and blood pressure pills making a quiet altar. We listed the N1 clues on a yellow pad. Timestamp mismatch, Novi 5, 4:42 p.m. versus choir copy log, 4:16, 4:58. Teller note, mother in car, contradicts my location. Approval field carries Marcus's full name. Pastor's Nov 6 bank-branded certificate. "N2 documents next," Denise said, sliding on cotton gloves like a museum curator. "We build a ladder." She flipped red folder's back flap and found a wedged email printout, corners greasy with thumb oil. The subject, urgent, transfer. From Tiana.bi to Marcus D.A. CC, empty. Dated Novi 4, 11:22 p.m. "We can push it through if she doesn't come in," the email read. "Use the POA and call in a favor. Jameer's on evenings. He won't stop you. After Friday, nobody can touch us." My scalp prickled. Jameer, our bank guard, named without his knowing. Denise circled the timestamp. They were planning the bypass before the emergency ever knocked. We paused only long enough for the kettle to click. As I poured, my phone vibrated. A new voicemail, 11:09 a.m. Unknown. I hit speaker. Tiana's voice, sugar over wire. "Ms. Laverne, it's Tiana. We found a buyer who can close fast. You'll love the offer. $410,000 cash, waive inspection. I'll bring papers by at 3. Don't stress yourself. Family's got you." The call ended with a laugh that didn't touch her throat. Denise wrote $410K beside $420K, the draft listing. "They're undercutting to move quick. Cash buyers graze on panic." She picked up the POA. "We file your revocation at 11:30 a.m. and notarize. I also want a medical letter, your physician affirming capacity. Not because you need it, because courts like belts and suspenders." The door knocked gentle. I checked the peephole. Pastor Reed. He stepped in with a smile that knew every camera angle. "Sisters," he said, "let us pray before this becomes a spectacle." He sat without being invited and folded his hands. "Laverne, Marcus came to me, repentant. He asked me to mediate. Could we honor the sanctity of Thanksgiving by avoiding police?" "Pastor," I said, Thanksgiving is about gratitude, not hush. His gaze cooled half a degree. I fear how this will look. Your son, a prominent entrepreneur, your history of service, the optics. The truth will have its own optics, Denise cut in. He adjusted his tie. There is, of course, the matter of our community outreach grant. The bank expedited funds this week. Marcus facilitated introductions. Providence, perhaps. Providence doesn't forge signatures, I said. A phone buzzed. He checked it, thumb twitching. I must go. Please, Laverne. Keep it in the family. He set a church-embossed envelope on my table, glanced at the red folder, and left. Denise opened the envelope with a butter knife. Inside, a glossy flyer draft for Homecoming Sunday with a line that made my stomach lurch. Special thanks, Marcus E. Brooks, community partner. Below it, the bank's logo. We sat in the hum of my refrigerator and the whistle of a November draft. Denise finally said, "We don't accuse the pastor. We document the intersection. If the bank's logo is on a flyer the day after an irregular cash pull, and Marcus is thanked by name, then we ask for emails between church and bank." I nodded, throat tight. And we keep the red folder moving. I flipped to the back pocket and felt a hard rectangle. A USB drive, maroon with a chipped corner. I held it like a match. Denise met my eyes. "We don't plug that in here. We take it to my office where the computer's air-gapped. If it's what I think, we'll have camera stills and internal emails. If it's not, well, then the enemy packed us a Trojan horse." The clock on my stove clicked over to 11:28 a.m. We rose to leave, and my phone lit with a text from an unknown number. "If you step into that church on Sunday, I'll—" Why did the message cut off right when the threat learned my name? By 11:42 a.m., Denise and I were at Fulton County Services, where a weary clerk notarized my revocation of power of attorney. The blue stamp landed with a satisfying thunk, NOV 12, ink bleeding like a wound cauterized. Denise slid 2 copies into plastic sleeves. One for the bank, one for the church. Paper on walls, paper in hands. We drove straight to Dr. Whitaker's office. He's been listening to my lungs and my memories since 1999, never once confused the two. He adjusted his bow tie, reviewed the cognitive test he knows I ace even in my sleep, and typed fast. "Capacity intact. No evidence of impairment," the letter read. He printed 2 originals on watermarked paper, $75 copay, paid cash. Receipts tucked. At 1:06 p.m., Mr. Keyes called from the bank. "Risk flagged the $85,000 withdrawal. CCTV request submitted. Expect to drive by tomorrow noon." He hesitated. "Ms. Brooks, the teller who processed it, L. Green, didn't show for work today." "Went missing?" Denise asked on speaker. "Called in sick," he said, voice picking its way across a minefield. "I'm concerned." We hung up into a silence that buzzed. My phone dinged. Calendar invite. Property valuation. Today, 3 p.m. Address, my house. Sender, Tiana Bayi. Denise arched an eyebrow. "They're moving like repo men." "Let them," I said, pulse steadying on something hard inside me. "We'll have an audience for the revocation." At 2:58 p.m., the appraiser arrived. Caleb, clipboard, laser measure, shoes that never met a scuff. Tiana trailed behind in a camel coat. Marcus by the sidewalk pretending not to supervise. I opened the door wide enough for my words. "Before you measure my closets, measure my consent." I held out the revocation and Dr. Whitaker's letter. "Any listing or sale attempts under my name or property are unauthorized." Caleb took 2 careful steps back. "Ma'am, I just measure. I don't adjudicate." "Adjudicate this," Denise said, handing him a copy. "If you put your signature on a report that facilitates fraud, you get to adjudicate from a stand." Tiana's smile flashed like a blade. "Ms. Laverne, we're only trying to help you transition to a more manageable—" "I am not furniture. I don't get transitioned," I said. Marcus leaned in, voice low. "You should be thanking me. That roof won't hold through winter, and you know it." I gestured to the soffit I paid for with choir bake sales and a January coupon, $1,380 cash. "This roof was raised by women who don't ask boys for permission." Caleb cleared his throat. "Given the dispute, I can't proceed without clarity." He scooted toward his Prius like a crab meeting daylight. Clarity comes Sunday, I said. Marcus's eyes hardened. You go to that church, and I swear. Denise clicked voice memos open, phone angled casual as a napkin. Finish the sentence, she said, bright as lemonade. He swallowed it back. Tiana tugged his sleeve. We'll do it another way, she murmured. And they left, anger trailing like cologne. At 4:21 p.m., Jameer texted from a blocked number. They asked me questions about you. I didn't answer. If someone official calls, I'll talk. Also, saw a guy in a hoodie with Marcus that day. He sent a blurry still. A shoulder, a scar peeking from a jawline, the kind of face that grows in shadows. At 4:49 p.m., a heavy knock rattled my door. A woman in a camel blazer held a manila packet. Order to show cause. Temporary guardianship petition, she read, handing me papers that smelled like toner and audacity. Hearing, Friday, 4:30 p.m., 30 minutes before my deadline. Denise scanned fast. They're trying to freeze you right under the wire. If a judge signs even temporary orders, the bank could lock you out till Monday. I looked at the clock, at the stove, at the Bible on the red folder. My house hummed, alive with every hymn I'd ever cooked to. Then we move court to where I still have a voice, I said. The courier shifted her feet. You have to appear, she mumbled. Oh, I'll appear, I said, but not empty-handed. What do you bring to a courtroom built to silence you, besides a voice that finally learned to carry? Denise says timing is a sermon. You don't waste the first amen. At 8:03 a.m. the next morning, I texted Marcus. Breakfast, Waffle House, 10 ga, just us. I wanted him off balance, away from the house, somewhere grease and fluorescent lights strip a man down to his appetite. Waffle House on Moreland Ave smells like coffee and courage you didn't think you had. I slid into a booth facing the door. A waitress named Hope, gold hoop, tired kindness, poured refills before my hands asked. Marcus arrived at 10:11, wearing a clean sweatshirt like innocence. You alone? He asked, eyes sweeping. I let my tote bag slide open just enough for the red folder's wink. Depends on what you count as company. He ordered pecan waffles he didn't touch. Let's stop the drama, he said. Sign the transfer. We pay the men. Everyone sleeps. Who are the men? I asked. Names travel faster than fear. You don't want those names. Then I'll use the names I have, I said, and set my revocation of POA beside the salt shaker. He laughed softly. Paper don't stop fists. Hope refilled my cup like punctuation. Anything else, baby? Yes, I said, watching Marcus's phone face up beside his elbow, the camera's black eye aimed at me. Can you remind me what Georgia is on recordings? One-party consent, right? Hope blinked. Ma'am? Georgia's one-party consent, I said to Marcus, keeping my voice honeyed. Means I can record this, means you can too, and I see you are. I tilted my head at his phone. He didn't flinch. Gotta protect myself. Good, I said, and tapped my own screen. Voice memos, REC 10:19 a.m. Let's protect us both. He exhaled through his nose, a boy caught with stolen peaches. You make this hard, Ma. I made you from scratch, I said. Hard isn't new. He leaned closer, voice dropping. After Friday, nobody can touch us. The church will soft the optics. Pastor owes me. You think those grants land by prayer alone? Is that your plan talking or your guilt? I asked. He smirked. Plan. Our plates went cold while his words warmed the tape. He said favor, expedite, Jameer, POA, enough times to braid a rope. Then the door chimed, and in walked Tiana, sunglasses like a mask, sliding into the seat beside him without asking. Baby, show her the cash buyer, she said, and pulled up a message thread with Jasper Closeouts, LLC. Offer $410,000. Close by Nov 17, a wire routing number with zeros marching like soldiers. She angled the screen for me. A kindness or a trap, I could never tell with Tiana. Say yes, Ms. Laverne. We wire your spending money, $25,000, same day. Spending money, I repeated, letting the phrase sour on my tongue. For the privilege of losing my name. Marcus's knee bounced. This is going nowhere. Not nowhere, I said. To a judge at 4:30 p.m. Friday unless you withdraw that guardianship stunt. Tiana's smile didn't reach her cheeks. We'll bring letters. Pastor's already drafting one about your forgetfulness. Pastor is drafting a letter about a memory he doesn't own, I said. Her manicure glinted. He owns the room Sunday. I wiped syrup from my fingers, set down a 20, and stood. Rooms don't own truth. Outside, cold November light made every crack in the parking lot honest. Denise idled at the curb. She'd been 2 blocks away the whole time, just in case. I slid into the passenger seat and handed her my phone. 40 minutes, I said. Names on tape. She listened, jaw setting. This is N2+, documents via their own mouths. We'll staple it to the capacity letter and the revocation. But we still need N3, image or witness, before we walk into court. CCTV by noon, I said. And Jameer. Denise nodded. And the USB. My office. Now. Her air-gapped desktop has a fan that whirs like a box fan in July. She seated the maroon USB like a communion wafer. The screen hiccuped, then bloomed folders. Lobbycam 1105, corridor, still 4:42 p.m. .png, emails with subjects like re-expedite and re-favor L. Green. Denise's breath caught. They left us their map. She clicked a still. The frame froze on 4:42:18 p.m. Marcus in a baseball cap, head dipped, standing too close to a teller window. Beside him, a man in a hoodie, jaw scar catching a fluorescent stutter. The teller's badge, L. Green, tilted toward them. Denise whispered, "That's N3. My phone buzzed. Unknown ID. I answered. Silence first, then a voice, sandpaper over ice. Sunday. If you step into that church, I'll make sure you never... What do you say to a stranger who promises to finish your sentence and your breath in the same call? The threat call came in at 12:07 p.m. and ended on a rasp, like the man had chewed gravel for breakfast. Denise hit record incident on her paralegal app and logged the time, number, and my pulse. 92 and climbing. We file a police report, she said. Even if they shrug, it's a timestamp. Paper first, feelings later. At 1:15 p.m., we were at Zone 6 precinct, under a flickering light that gave everyone a bad complexion. The desk sergeant took my statement, eyes sliding to the clock, pen moving reluctant as a teenager. Without a name, ma'am, it's just a bad call, he said. Denise asked for an incident number. He tore it off with a sigh. Z6 11 12 143. It wasn't comfort, but it was ink. Back home, the CCTV drive arrived early. A padded envelope from Peachtree Federal, return address stamped crisp. Inside, a 32-gigabyte stick with a chain of custody form, signed 11:49 a.m., keys. We didn't plug it in there. Denise's air-gapped machine was our only altar for such offerings. But the relief of something official settled my nerves. Then, the day bent sideways. 2:52 p.m. A call from Mr. Keyes. Ms. Brooks, Risk placed a provisional freeze pending verification, he said, voice stiff with procedure. Have you been through something similar? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every comment. It's important for us to know we're not alone. But a counter order came through. Temporary guardianship pending hearing. A beat. Your accounts are in administrative hold until Friday 5 p.m. or court direction. Who filed the counter order? Denise asked, already opening her email. Attached, he said. A PDF slid into her inbox like a blade. Brooks v. Brooks, ex parte petition. Attached affidavits from T. Brooks and P. Reed. Denise went very still. Pastor signed, she whispered. The affidavit said, Ms. Laverne has appeared forgetful, misplaced checks, and repeated questions in meetings. Dates listed, Nov 2, Nov 6. The very days I'd run the choir copy machine and his office hung the bank grant. I closed my eyes. I could still smell the warm toner from the copy room. Hear Sister Pearl saying, Heaven don't lose counts. My cheeks burned. I wasn't just fighting my son now. I was fighting the room that taught him what a room could do. At 3:41 p.m., my doorbell rang. L. Green stood there. No badge, just a cardigan and eyes rimmed red. She held a brown paper sack like lunch or confession. Ms. Brooks, she said, voice wobbling. I can't keep this. She set the sack on my table and left before I could say, Amen. Denise opened it with 2 fingers, as if regret might bite. Inside, a teller cash-out ledger torn from a spiral pad. Nov 5, 4:42 p.m. Initials LG, transaction Yarswort 42, withdrawal $85,000. Handwritten note. Approved by MEB, called in favor by Reed. My lungs forgot air. Denise snapped photos, sealed the ledger in a new evidence envelope, and wrote the time across the flap. This is N2 with teeth and a side of N3, if she testifies, she said. But the court won't love that we got it like a sandwich. They'll call it tainted. We need official subpoena. Her phone buzzed. Judge's clerk. Fridays 4:30 p.m. Docket is overbooked, Denise said, listening. We've been pushed to Monday 9 a.m. Temporary hold remains. The world narrowed to the stovetop clock. Friday 5 p.m. still loomed like a cliff. Now the bridge to it was gone. My accounts locked, my pastor's affidavit against me, my hearing delayed. Denise squeezed my hand. This is the part of the sermon where the choir goes soft, she said. We wait. We don't break. I looked at the red folder, fat with receipts like a heart that never stopped working. The house hummed. The November wind tongued the window frame, testing it. I set the folder under my Bible, as if paper could pray. The phone lit one more time, unknown, and then went dark. What do you call the hour when your own church's ink tries to erase your name? Saturday came clean and cold, Nov 13, sun sharp as truth. I woke at 6:12 a.m. to the smell of my neighbor's bacon and the ache of a fight that had moved into my bones. Denise texted, meet me at First New Mount, 9Y, wear your choir coat. I did. The blue one with the satin trim I'd hemmed for $14.99 worth of thread and patience. In the church parking lot, Jameer leaned on his hatchback, hands shoved into pockets like he'd borrowed his own body. Beside him stood Sister Eunice, head usher since my hair was black, her lapel pins catching the sun like medals. Denise had arranged it. Witness meets, witness where they first learned to count faces. Jameer towed the gravel. Ms. Brooks, I can say what I saw. That afternoon, Nov 5, Marcus came in, cap low, hoodie guy with the scar. He told me, family business, when I asked about procedure. He said Pastor was expecting him. Jameer swallowed. I didn't see you, ma'am. Not in no car. Denise clicked her pen. You willing to sign a statement? Yes, ma'am, he said, voice small but steady. I like my job. I like my sleep more. Sister Eunice folded her hands like she was about to pray a hurricane away. Ms. Laverne, baby, I count envelopes every Sunday, she said. On November 6, I saw Pastor Reed hang that community outreach grant certificate. He said, Marcus facilitated this blessing. And I said, blessings don't wear men's names. He laughed. I didn't. My throat tightened. Eunice, she lifted a palm. I ain't taking sides. I'm taking truth. Also, I got eyes. Pastor's been rehearsing a compassion statement for Homecoming Sunday. I seen the draft. Words about honor thy mother that end up honoring the son who writes the checks. Denise's gaze sharpened. Can you get me that draft? Eunice's smile tilted. You know I can get a program proof out of copy room faster than gossip can run. We moved to the copy room, the warm toner smell wrapping me like an old choir robe. Eunice slid a tray out with a magician's flourish and produced a proof sheet. Homecoming Sunday, order of service. In the corner, bank logo. On the back, special thanks, Marcus E. Brooks, still sitting there like a shiny sin. Under Pastor's remarks, we choose compassion over punishment. We protect our elders by trusting their children. Denise took a photo, then tucked the proof under her arm. They're laying a story. We answer with dates and amounts. Jameer signed a brief witness statement Denise drafted on her pad, initialed each line like it was a hymn verse. Eunice signed a separate note. She saw the grant certificate hung Nov 6, and she saw Pastor's draft remarks Nov 12. The church's photocopier whirred, spitting out duplicates like a factory of truth. As we left, Pastor Reed appeared at the end of the hall, his silhouette framed by stained glass blues. Sister Brooks, he said, voice all sugar and sermon. Busy, I see. Preparing to worship, I said. He nodded at the blue coat. You'll sing tomorrow? I'll speak, I said. His smile didn't crack. Then perhaps you'll allow me to go first. Outside, November bit my cheeks awake. Denise squeezed my elbow. This is our unexpected resource. The people who watched him be careful and saw where he wasn't, she said. Jameer and Eunice put N3 on our table with clean hands. Back at Denise's office, we fed the CCTV drive into the air-gapped machine. The courtroom clock in my head counted down the night. Lobby cam 11:05 opened to a grid of thumbnails. 440, 441, 442. Denise clicked. The frame filled with Marcus tipping his cap to the camera instead of hiding from it, the scar-jaw man angled away, the teller L. Green sliding a cash drawer brace open. The timestamp boxed in yellow, 16:42:19. Print, Denise said. The printer spit out 8x10 stills that made my son small and guilty in cheap pixels. She fanned them dry. Tomorrow we don't accuse, we observe out loud. We drafted a one-page handout for Homecoming Sunday. Bullet points with dates and amounts. Novi 5/4:42 p.m. $85,000 cash withdrawal. Nov 6, grant certificate hung. Nov 11, 7:56 p.m. Voicemail. Don't disappoint me, Ma. Nov 12, guardianship petition filed 4:49 p.m. At the bottom, a line I heard my own voice write. At my age, I don't shout. I document. Denise packed an envelope, CCTV stills, witness statements, POA revocation, capacity letter, teller ledger. She added a USB duplicate labeled in her neat hand. For officer, for judge. Evening rolled in like a low organ note. I stood at my sink, washed a single cup, and let the warm water remind my bones they were mine. The red folder waited on the table, fat with tomorrow. My phone buzzed, and this time it wasn't unknown. Marcus. A text bubble swelled, swallowed itself, swelled again. Then, if you step into that church tomorrow, I'll... The message cut off, then returned with a single word. Regret. I typed back one sentence and hit send. Would he still stand there when I read his own words into a microphone built to carry every syllable to the balcony? By the time the midweek sun slid low, Denise had transformed my kitchen table into a courtroom. Staples, sticky notes, a scatter of prints. Monday, Nov 15, was the day the world would either hear me or hum me into silence. We started early. The forensic handwriting report Denise had begged for arrived in an envelope stamped 11:02 a.m., its paper smelling of laboratories and small certainties. The analyst's conclusion: signatures on POA display inconsistent slant, pressure, and stroke with known exemplars of Laverne Brooks. In plain words, forgery. The forensics were N2. The CCTV stills were N3. The voicemail, Marcus's voice, "Don't disappoint me, Ma," was N1 carried like a knife. Denise fed each piece to Detective Olivia with a calm that felt like prayer. I watched Olivia's fingers fly over her tablet, the way a conductor raises a baton when an orchestra finally learns the tune. "You've given us a good map," she said, eyes soft but precise. "We'll open an internal probe into the teller, get formal subpoenas, and talk to the DA about charging for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy." Her words landed and took root. We walked the evidence into Fulton County DA's office by one, where a prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Morales, read our packet like a novel she hadn't expected to like. She lingered over the bank ledger L. Green had left on my table, over Jameer's signed witness statement, over the pastor's thank you certificate, and the draft of his homecoming remarks. "This is more than a family spat," Morales said, leaning forward. "This is a paper trail that runs from your son to bank intervention to a cloak of legitimacy. We can issue an indictment if witness statements corroborate the ledger and CCTV. She clicked her pen. "We'll want you to testify. And Ms. Brooks, if we move, it will be fast." Fast became a word that made my back ache. But then the DA smiled, small and certain. "We've got probable cause enough to subpoena Marcus and Tiana. We'll present the audio. We'll show the stills. We'll prove the POA is a forgery. If the judge signs, we can arrest on sight. Denise and I stepped out into the November air, the sky stretched like a promise. I clutched the USB Denise had duplicated, CCTV, audio, email threads, and felt its weight like armor. On the curb, Jameer handed me a paper bag with a styrofoam cup of coffee and said, "Ma'am, I told the teller to hold the door. I don't want my name in someone's regret." His voice trembled like a new hymn. We coordinated with Detective Olivia a plan. Indictments requisitioned that afternoon. Arrest warrant dependent on the judge's signature. Evidence chain sealed. I'd be subpoenaed to testify at the preliminary hearing, but the DA wanted to wait until they had multiple corroborating witnesses ready to stand in the light. At 4:17 p.m., my phone chimed. It was Pastor Reed. "Laverne, can we talk? The sanctuary is quiet now." His text read like a sheep asking forgiveness for a wolf. I ignored it and sent a copy of the forensics to Morales instead. That night, as Denise triple-checked the printed packets and the DA set the wheels in motion, Marcus texted me a single emoji, a clenched fist. I saved the message and slid it into the evidence folder. At 8:05 p.m., Ada Morales called. "We have the judge's signature," she said. Her voice carried the strange hush of someone who turns a page and finds the ending already written. "There's an arrest warrant for Marcus E. Brooks and an accompanying charge for attempted intimidation against your person. We'll coordinate with the precinct to take him into custody tomorrow morning." My hands went cold and then hot, all in the same breath. For months, I had cataloged wounds in receipts and sticky notes. Now the law was going to translate my paper into consequence. I thought of Edward's quiet manipulations and the way Marcus learned to use a name like a key. I thought of all the mornings I'd poured coffee and been paid with entitlement. Denise hugged me like a sister who'd been through the fire and not let the wood burn. "You did this," she whispered. "No," I corrected, hand over the red folder. "We did this. The truth did this." What will Marcus do when the blue lights come for him tomorrow morning? The morning after the warrant, the world felt thin and loud. Tuesday, November 16th, 7:02 a.m., and radio voices told of cold fronts and traffic. I put on my choir coat, the blue one I'd hemmed, and pinned my safety into the inside pocket. Copies of the DA packet, the printed stills, and Jameer's signed note. Denise drove us to the precinct where Olivia had arranged to have Marcus held for processing nearby before transport. They did not make a show of it. No sirens blaring down Edgewood, no dramatic scene. He was taken in outside the bakery, polite as always, until the handcuffs found their patient. Marcus lifted his chin like a man at prayer and called for me at least once, "Ma," his voice depthless. I sat in the DA's conference room with Olivia and Morales and thought of all the times I'd said yes because my heart believed that yes would buy their love. While arrest unfolded, we worked on a parallel track, the public trap. Homecoming Sunday at First New Mount was 2 days away. I had told the church I was preaching, and they'd assigned me a short testimony slot after the offering. That's where I planned the inversion, the quiet flip from private proof to public undoing. Denise and Ada Morales coordinated with Detective Olivia to synchronize two things: the legal timeline, charges filed, arraignment scheduled, and the public reveal. We would not shout in the pulpit. We would let evidence speak. I would read a short testimony about truth and ownership, then hand Pastor Reed an envelope containing a USB and a printed packet labeled "For Public Record," if asked. The DA would have already filed charges, and the press liaison would be alerted. Witnesses, Jameer, Sister Eunice, L. Green, would be in the pews with signed statements if called. Denise warned me, "Don't let Sunday be your revenge. Let it be your accounting." I liked the ring of that word, account, and its double meaning. We rehearsed the sequence like a hymn: testimony, handoff, pause, detective's presence, arrest updates prepared for reporters. If Pastor Reed tried to soft-sell it into a family matter, the DA would release a statement with the indictment, and the church could not gaslight a court record. In the afternoon, Morales placed a call. "We're filing additional charges for solicitation of intimidation based on the voicemail and the unknown threat messages." The DA wanted the community to see that paper, audio, and witness testimony had teeth. That evening, Marcus's lawyer called Denise asking for a meeting. He sounded smooth and dangerous. He offered a family resolution if we would consider not making a spectacle on Sunday. Denise laughed softly into the phone. "You can ask under oath. We'll be at the courthouse." She hung up and put on the kettle. At home, I set the red folder on the table and took out the envelope I'd prepared for the pulpit. Inside were the stills, 442 snapshots, the forgery report, Jameer's signed note, L. Green's ledger, the email thread from Tiana, and the voicemail burned to a small disc with a label in Denise's handwriting. Evidence. Play if necessary. I thought of the pews filling, of women with stories like mine sitting under fluorescent light, and I felt a steady heat I'd never had when Marcus still expected my obedience. Before bed, I recorded a brief statement for the DA's press liaison, a calm, short paragraph about truth, justice, and boundaries. I practiced the line I wanted to read Sunday. At my age, I don't shout, I document. It felt less like a slogan and more like a new spine. That night, there was a knock at my door. Olivia's voice at the threshold. We picked up a message on an intercepted line. Someone suggested destroying evidence tomorrow. She slid a slip of paper across my kitchen table. It was an address and a time. Denise read it, then folded it in half. "They're nervous," she said. "Good. We want frightened people. Frightened people make mistakes." I looked at the red folder, at the USB inside it, at the copies that had turned my life into sequence and not supposition. For the first time in decades, I felt like the woman who kept receipts was also the woman who kept score. If the sanctuary fills with more than hymn books come Sunday, will the truth be gentle enough to set us free or loud enough to burn everything down? Sunday morning smelled like starch and incense. Nov 17, Homecoming Day. The sanctuary shimmered with sequins and whispered prayers. I wore my choir coat, the blue one, and under it, a silk scarf hiding the small recorder Denise had pinned there. She called it insurance. I called it grace. At 8:10 a.m., Pastor Reed sent a text. "Come early. Let's settle things quietly." Denise nodded when I showed her. "That's your cue," she said. "Remember, don't accuse, document." His office was a portrait gallery of second chances, plaques, photos, smiling donors. The red folder sat between us on his mahogany desk, like a third guest. Pastor Reed clasped his hands, that soft baritone coating his guilt. "Laverne," he began. "I prayed over this. Marcus is misguided, but he's repenting. The DA's office will ruin him. Withdraw the complaint, and we'll handle this in-house. He'll pay restitution. We'll preserve your dignity." "My dignity doesn't need preservation," I said. "It needs truth," he sighed. "You've always been an emotional soul. You misunderstand procedure." "Procedure is my language," I said, sliding out a copy of the forensic report. "You see this slant? It's my name, written by a thief." His eyes flicked down. This could be a mistake. "Then why did your signature appear on the community outreach grant certificate the day after my money left the bank?" I asked. "Why did you co-sign Marcus's request to delay the risk review? That's not a mistake." "That's a pattern." He sat back, jaw tightening. "I did it for the church." "The church doesn't need stolen tithes," I said. "It needs confession." He rose, voice low and threatening in its calm. "Be careful, Sister Brooks. Slander's a sin with consequences. So is theft." I opened the red folder and pushed the teller's ledger toward him. "Look, approved by MEB, called in favor by Reed. Your name lives in ink now. You can't pray it away." He went pale. "You don't understand the optics." "I understand leverage," I said. "You used my son's ambition to fatten your budget, and now you'll face the law with him." A soft knock interrupted. Marcus, escorted by Detective Olivia, standing in the doorway. His wrists cuffed, his face a war of arrogance and fear. "Ma," he said, "don't do this." I looked at him, my baby who'd learned to smile while lying. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting the papers speak." Olivia nodded to me. "We have your statement on record. We're proceeding to booking." Marcus tried one last line. "You'd ruin your own blood?" I stood, gathering the red folder and the recorder's small hum. Blood doesn't make you family. Integrity does. Pastor Reed whispered, "If you go public, you'll burn the whole house of worship." I looked him dead in the eye. Then maybe it's time the house felt what we've been feeling. When the choir starts singing and the cameras roll, whose voice will carry? Mine, the pastor's, or the truth itself? The sanctuary overflowed. Hats, fans, glittering pew smiles. The organ hummed a prelude that sounded too innocent for the morning ahead. I took my seat in the choir stand, envelope tucked inside my Bible. Denise sat near the aisle, her phone discreetly streaming to the DA's server, timestamp running. When Pastor Reed stepped to the pulpit, applause rose like a reflex. "Saints," he said, "today we celebrate compassion. We heal, not accuse." His voice rolled like honey over rot. I opened my Bible. The red folder sat on my lap like prophecy. Then he said it. "Let us honor Sister Brooks, who teaches us grace even under confusion." My name broke across the room like glass. I stood slowly, the blue choir coat shimmering. "Pastor, I have a word," I said, walking to the microphone. Murmurs rippled. Denise nodded once. "Go." I placed my Bible on the pulpit. For years I kept receipts. Today I offer a few. The screen behind flickered. Denise's cue. The projector displayed a still. Marcus at the teller window. Timestamp Nov 5, 4:42 p.m. Gasps filled the sanctuary. "This," I said, "is my son withdrawing $85,000 under my name. Here." I held up the report. A forged power of attorney. And here, I pressed the USB into the AV tech's hand. His own words, "Don't disappoint me, Ma." The sound filled the room. His voice echoed through the speakers like scripture turned sour. "Don't disappoint me, Ma. Family comes first." The crowd went still, then restless. Pastor Reed moved forward, sweating. "Now, Sister Brooks, this isn't—" "It is," I said. "And there's more. The teller's ledger. Approved by MEB. Called in favor by Reed. Your name is inked where it doesn't belong." A low hum rose. Whispers, gasps, hands to mouths. Sister Eunice stood in her pew, voice trembling but strong. "She's telling it straight." Detective Olivia stepped from the aisle, badge gleaming. "Under authority of Fulton County, we're executing warrants for Marcus E. Brooks and Reverend Paul Reed on charges of fraud, forgery, and financial conspiracy." Gasps turned to chaos, then to silence. Marcus, still cuffed, was escorted down the aisle. Pastor Reed froze, face ashen, then lowered his head as Olivia read his rights. I stepped back from the pulpit and said, into the stunned quiet, "This isn't vengeance. It's accounting." When I turned to leave, applause began. Not loud, not triumphant, but like rain after drought. What happens when the truth you've spoken finally echoes back, and you have to live in its silence? News spread faster than gossip ever had. Church fraud uncovered by 66-year-old parishioner. The headlines didn't say my name right, but I didn't mind. Marcus faced 7 counts: forgery, fraud, intimidation, elder exploitation. Each charge a line item on the bill he'd written in arrogance. At arraignment, he kept his eyes down while the clerk read the totals. Tiana wept. Her attorney whispered about cooperation. Pastor Reed stood 2 benches away, silent, his ministry suspended pending investigation. ADA Morales leaned toward me. "Your statement broke the dam. 3 witnesses came forward today." And the teller turned herself in. I just nodded. Truth multiplies when it's not afraid. Marcus's plea was guilty to 3 charges. The judge, an older black woman with glasses halfway down her nose, looked at me as she sentenced him. 12 years, with restitution of $285,000. She said, "Ms. Brooks, I see women like you rebuild this city quietly. Today the law caught up to you, not to fix you, but to recognize you." Outside, reporters asked how I felt. I said, "Tired and thankful." That was enough. When justice lands, what do you do with the silence that follows it? Weeks passed. The church replaced Pastor Reed. The DA called it divine timing. My house stayed mine, deed verified, title reissued. I replaced the front lock myself, $47.85 from Home Depot. Denise brought peach pie and 2 mugs that said receipts in gold letters. You realize you started something? She said. Women at your church are checking their accounts, calling their banks. I smiled. Good. Paper's contagious. I used part of the restitution to start the Ledger Project, free workshops teaching widows and retirees how to protect their assets. The first meeting had 12 women, all carrying folders in different colors. We laughed when someone called mine the Red Bible. That night, I wrote to the judge thanking her for believing a quiet woman with steady hands. I didn't hear from Marcus. Prison silence has its own grammar. But one envelope arrived from Jackson State Penitentiary, postmarked Deck 22. Inside, a single page. Ma, I finally understand what "don't disappoint me" means. I already did. M. I didn't cry. I filed it behind the ledger report, under closure. Can forgiveness live in the same folder as proof? Spring returned like an apology. On March 8th, I stood in the community hall of First New Mount. Reformed, sunlight filtering through clean glass. 12 new women arrived, clutching notebooks and coffee. The red folder sat on the table, open, but no longer heavy. I told them, we start with what's ours, our names, our homes, our accounts. Because at my age, I don't shout. I document. They laughed, some with tears hiding under mascara. We filed affidavits, learned to read bank slips, practiced saying no without apology. When the session ended, a young woman pressed a hand to my arm. Ms. Brooks, she said, how did you do it? Weren't you scared? I looked out the window where the magnolias were blooming, stubborn and white. Of course I was, but fear is just another receipt, proof you cared enough to keep count. I locked the red folder in a drawer marked Legacy. It felt lighter now, as if the truth had paid its balance. Then I whispered, half prayer, half promise. I wasn't the loudest. I had dates and amounts, and I kept my name.